Hello, friends. Welcome to Late Night Creations. My name is Kendra, and I'm really glad you're here. Let's get crafting.
Just look at all this beautiful scrap wood from an old fence that someone gave me. And I took it to the shop and I cut it down to the lengths that I wanted for this particular project. I love that dog-eared top at the top of it. It's going to make this project extra special. I put this 2x at the bottom and clamped it all together with my little wood clamps. It was kind of warped, but I think this is going to work out just fine. Now, I cut this pumpkin out on my Cricut, and we're going to do a reverse stencil. So I'm going to use this transfer tape, and I'm going to burnish it onto my transfer tape, the image onto my transfer tape. Then I'm just going to simply place it where I want it on this wood. And I'm going to scrape it with my little scraper and make sure that it gets on there good. And then I'm going to just peel this transfer tape off. And voila. We have a pumpkin on our wood. I'm going to use the Vintage Linen by DIY and this awesome DIY paintbrush. You can get any DIY products that you want from unicorndustdesigns.com. Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Designs has a beautiful website, and you can get any of the DIY products from her. So I am just painting over this just haphazardly. I do want to get around the edges of the pumpkin, but I'm just haphazardly. I want to let some of that wood still show through. And then when I'm going to do the edges too. I don't believe I did the back. I think I just did the edges. Then I'm going to take my trusted tweezers and peel this off. It is still a little bit wet, so I'm going to be careful not to smear it, get paint where I don't want it. But look how beautiful that is to reveal that wood from behind that vinyl. Now, I had this burlap, wide piece of burlap ribbon in my stash. Someone had it left over from a wedding, and of course they asked me if I wanted it because they know I craft, and you know I said yes. Never turned down craft supplies. So I'm just going to wrap it around. I'm going to use my stapler. You could use hot glue if you want. I just wanted to use my stapler, and I'm going to just staple that down to the back side. Then I'm going to flip it over, and here we go with, okay, so I'm going to make a bow first. And I'm just going to take another piece of that, and I'm just going to cut it and pinch it in the middle. I'm going to fray the edges a little because I like that look. And then I'm going to pinch it in the middle and use a zip tie, I believe. I couldn't decide if I wanted to just leave it on there. Just the bow, or if I wanted to cinch up the bow and the ribbon, or just the bow. So I decided I wanted to cinch up the ribbon in the back as well because I like the way that looks. Now, I got all these florals from Dollar Tree last year, but I did see them there this year, and I'm just going to take these little needle nose pliers, have a wire cutter in them, and I'm just going to cut them into pieces. I'm just going to poke these little pieces of floral where I want. I really wanted to use that, but I couldn't make it look right. And I just got in my stash, and I have a container that says floral bits, and some of these came out of the floral bit bin, and just bits and pieces can really make a project turn out good. So I just kept messing with it till I got it the way that I wanted it. And I did end up stapling behind the bow to keep that burlap up, because when I put the florals on, it kind of got heavy. So it started kind of pulling it down. So I did staple it behind the bow. You can't even see it once I'm done. And there we go. Here is our final finished product. Let me know what you think about this beauty. I'm in love. Keeping this one for myself. I hope this video has given you some inspiration to go out there and find some old wood. Look on the curbs when people are replacing their fences, or check Facebook Marketplace. They're always giving away scrap wood, reclaimed wood, and if you don't have a jigsaw, they're pretty inexpensive, but see if your neighbor has one or a friend has one. It's super easy, and look at what you can make. So, if you're loving these DIYs, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed. Look down there under this video at the subscribe and make sure you're subscribed and hit that little bell so you get notified every time that I upload a video. You won't miss anything. No telling what we're gonna do over here. Okay, let's get back to crafting. Okay, this one started out as a little bit of a challenge, but I quickly figured out how to remedy the situation. I have these 3 boards. I believe they were all 18 inches. Oh, I think there's only 2 boards. Sorry. I think they were 18 inches. But I thought I would glue them and clamp them. But because they were so warped, the clamps did not work. So I had these paint stir sticks, and I decided that I would cut them and put them on the back, and it would hold those 2 pieces together. So I took them out to the shop, and I cut them. I just taped them all together and made 1 cut and got them the length that I needed. Now, I decided that I was going to use some of this canvas. What is it? It is a, you put it down when you're painting. Drop cloth. There you go. It's a drop cloth. And I'm just going to glue and staple it to the back. So that's going to kind of hold those 2 pieces together a little bit. And then I'm going to glue at the high points where I think it's going to touch. And then I'm going to go back and staple them. But this is going to help hold these 2 boards together on the back. I do go back and staple them. I think I do put some tacks in as well. Like, I did not want these going anywhere. I used those little tacks, and I didn't want to show hammering too much because it was shaking the camera, but that's what I did. I was making sure it didn't go all the way through. I did check before I started hammering it that the nail wouldn't be too thick, but I was just making sure. Now, I'm going to use the color Summer Crush by DIY, which is a beautiful, beautiful fall orange pumpkin color. Now, these little dog-eared pieces of wood, I cut them down to the size that I wanted them. And I'm going to do one in this Summer Crush. I'm going to do the other one in Queen Bee. And I'm only doing the front and the sides because you're not going to see the back. And I just kind of dabbed it on those really rough parts, and if the wood shows through, that's good. And I didn't do a solid coat. Like, I was okay if some of that wood is showing through, because this is a very rustic. If you don't like rustic, this is not going to be the one for you. Now, I have these little tumbling tower blocks, and I decided to paint them because I'm going to put them behind these. These are going to be pumpkins, and I'm going to put those little tumbling tower blocks behind them to raise them off to make more of a 3D effect. You can see there that I used a little bit of dry brushing of the opposite color on them, and I'm not sure why I showed you those. Okay, this is Farm Fresh by DIY, and I'm giving it a rough coat, the front and the sides, and then what am I doing here? Oh, I'm finishing it up. Sorry. Yeah, and this wood is so dry, it was really soaking the paint up. Okay, so now it's almost dry. So I am got these little pieces of twigs that came from Dollar Tree, and a whole bag of them. But normally I just go out to my yard and cut some branches off of a bushy tree thing that we have out in the yard. I don't even know what it is. It's hideous. But anyway, I will cut branches off of it, and it makes for really good crafting. Now, to keep that where it needs to be until it dries, I decided to put some painter's tape on each side. And then once it was dry, it stayed on there really nicely. Now, I got these fall stencils from the company I cannot say it, y'all. Essential Stencils. And I'm going to use layered chocolate on the Hello and the FLL. And I'm using a little pouncer, sponge pouncer. And this did bleed a little bit. You're going to see that it bled a little bit. But it's okay because it's rustic and I'm going to sand it. So we're not going to get too crazy about that. Then I used the orange, the Summer Crush, and then a little bit of brown on the leaf. And now I'm just going to take my little sanding block and just sand over it a little bit to rough it up to make it match the rest of everything. And I'm going to take some dark wax by DIY. And I'm just going to brush it with a chippy brush. Or this is not a chippy brush. This is just an old worn out brush. I would normally use a chippy brush. Don't know why I grabbed this one. Maybe all my chippy brushes were dirty. So I'm going to just put a little bit of that brown wax around the edges. We're still trying to age these and make them look, rustic. So wherever you think it should look dark, just put some. There's no right or wrong to distressing and making things look old. I guess I decided I wanted some underneath that tape, so I just put it under there. And this one needed some under its tape too. Okay. Okay. You get the idea of how to do this, right? I must have left a clip in thinking that I had deleted it. Sometimes I do that with recording. I really do like how these turned out. I'm going to take the tape off. I'm going to glue those little tumbling tower blocks with a little bit of that quick, whatever that's called, Type Bond, quick and thick, I think is what it's called. And I'm going to put that on the back, a little bit of that and a little bit of hot glue. So the hot glue will help it to stick fast. And then the other glue is going to be a really good permanent hold. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side so that I can flip them over and stick them to our background sign. Let me know what you think about my color choices. Do you like these color choices for fall? I really love that Farm Fresh color, and I love that Summer Crush and Queen Bee. I love them all. Just going to hold that down long enough. I'm afraid that's not dry yet. So I'm going to take some raffia, and I'm just going to glue it around the top of this. And I discovered a fun little trick when my girls were little, and we used to make lots of hair bows, crazy hair bows back in the early 90s. And so I learned this little trick with a dowel rod, and you would wrap the ribbons around the dowel rod and wet it and put it in the oven, and it would make those little curly ribbons. So I thought, I'm going to wet this a little bit, wrap it around there, and dry it and see what happens. And it worked out great. So I'm going to put it around there. I don't know if I show you that I spritzed it with a little bit of water. Let me move some stuff out of the way. Nope, I didn't show you that I spritzed it with some water. And yeah, I burned that a little bit, but it's okay because it's rustic, right? And I didn't curl all of them. I just curled a few of them. There, I showed you I spritzed it, that one. And then I was a little more careful not to hold the heat on this one as long. We don't want anything catching on fire out in our little craft cottage. And so that's what I did for those. And then I'm going to take some of this Spanish moss from Dollar Tree and just glue a little bit along the bottom as if it looks like our little pumpkins are sitting in a patch. patch of little dead grass, I guess. These pumpkins are growing in Texas. Because you know, we have lots of dead grass in Texas about now. So I'm just going to use a little hot glue and poke it up. I'm going to use that little tool to poke that up in there where I want it. We'll just hot glue that down so it doesn't go anywhere. And I had that little stick that came out of that Spanish moss, and I thought, well, that would look kind of cute to stick that little stick down in there. So I just put a little hot glue on it and stuck it in there. Now to finish off the back, I'm going to take some more of that canvas drop cloth and cover the back side. But before I do that, I'm going to make a hanger. So I tied a knot in each end of this hanger. I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue there, and then I'm going to use my stapler to staple that down. I'm going to do that on both sides. And then I will take that drop cloth that I cut to the right size, and I'm just going to hot glue it down on the sides and press it in really good so that it goes to the wood and through the drop cloth. And I feel like that's going to hold it really good. Then I use the Tap Bond Quick and Thick in between on the top and the bottom. Then I'm going to hot glue the other side too. And this is a nice finished back that won't scratch the wall.
Hello and welcome to Late Night Creations. I'm so glad you joined me today because we are going to make this gorgeous pumpkin decor piece with very little glue. So we're going out to the shop and we're going to cut some wood. I'm going to cut all of these about 10 inches. I'm going to use one to measure the next one. And you know what? They don't all end up exactly the same length, but that's okay because this is a rustic piece. Just using this scrap wood that I have out in the shop and just easy peasy. I'm going to line that saw blade up with my line. And cut it just like that. Now I'm going to take it in where it's nice and cool because it was 111 degrees today outside and I was in that hot shop cutting that wood. So I'm going to take this in. I'm using this 60 or 80 grit sandpaper and just giving it a quick little sand. We want it to stay rustic. Now I'm going to use the Vintage Linen paint by DIY and going to just pour some into this little takeout lid. And I'm just going to give it a rough paint job. I'm not looking for any kind of full coverage at all. I'm using a chippy brush so that it looks rustic. And I'm also going to put another coat of paint on top of this, but I'm going to paint all the sides, the front, the back, all of it with this same technique. All of the pieces involved. Then I'm going to take Summer Crush by DIY Paint, and I get all my DIY paints from Sammy at www.unicorndustdesigns.com. You can go over there, you can get all your DIY or recycled papers and all kinds of vintage goodies for sale over there. So go and check out her website. I'll have it linked in the description box below. And just go over there and go shopping and have a good time. I love the DIY paints. I'm going to just do the same technique with the Summer Crush. And this is a beautiful orange. It's great for fall. Now, instead of using glue, we're going to make our own little kind of dowel sticks here. Now, I'm using these skewers, and I'm showing you that I got a drill bit that's the same size to drill my holes. And this was one of those 36-inch skewers from Dollar Tree that they only have in the summertime, but they're a little bit bigger around than the regular ones. And so I've just marked off how long I want them. I'm going to take my miter shears, and it cuts these just like butter. So easy. I hesitate because I don't want it to fling it across the room. So I'm being a little bit gentle with how I cut them. Then I'm going to drill a hole, and then I'm going to put these little pegs in, making my own little pegs. And we're going to, you've probably seen furniture that has this method to hold it together, and I just thought this would be easier because a lot of times my scrap wood is not even, and so when you try to glue it together, it doesn't make full contact. So this will be easier. So I'm just going to hammer these down into the little holes, and then I'm going to put them up next to each other and find out where my next holes need to be. I'm just going to make little marks and then drill the other holes, because sometimes my holes are not even. I do things kind of fly by the seat of my pants, but that's okay. That's part of being creative. And now I'm going to drill the holes in there and this side, and then I will connect them. Now you could put a little wood glue in there if they don't fit tightly, but mine fit pretty tightly. I'm not worried about them coming apart at all. And when I get 3 of these, well, I did 2 of these together. This is actually going to be the middle piece of our pumpkin. I'm trying to hit it with my hand. Let's get the hammer out. Very sturdy, very good. So that's going to be the middle piece. And then I have these 3 pieces I'm going to do the same thing with. So I'm going to measure out 2 inches in, and then in the middle. And I'm going to do that on each end. And then I'm going to drill holes there. It's important to make sure you're going straight up and down too, which is a little bit difficult when you're going on such a small, thin piece of wood. But from what I can tell, I did good. Yeah, that pine was a little bit wet, and it really smelled so nice. It made my craft room smell like pine. So I'm going to use 1 piece of wood to keep it straight across the bottom, and then I'm going to mark where I need to make a hole, where I need to drill. I'm going to drill that little spot out, and then I'm going to line that up and then mark where my next one should go, making sure it fits. Yep, fits nice and snugly. Snuggly or snugly, either way. Now this one had a little crack in it, and I was kind of worried that this piece of wood might split, but it did not. It was beautiful, worked great. So I'm just going to pop those 2 together, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other piece to get these 3 pieces hooked together. Now, there they are hooked together. Now, the 2 pieces that I hooked together earlier, we're going to attach to the 3 pieces that are hooked together by those 2 little pegs on the back side. Oops, see them? There they are. It's really difficult for me to keep this in the frame, and I apologize, but you can still kind of see what I'm doing. I'm just marking where I need to drill those holes so that we can stick those in there. I probably should have done 1 at the bottom, but I did put a little wood glue at the bottom instead of a peg. Now they look crooked, but it's because these were crooked on the back, because they fit just fine. Very good. Yay. Okay, now I'm going to use a little bit of this Titebond Quick and Thick, and I'm going to just squirt it up underneath between there where it's making contact, and that's going to just give it a little extra added strength. Okay, I drilled a hole all the way through. I sure did, but no worries. When you see in the end, you're not even going to notice it. So I went ahead and hammered my peg all the way through. So it just makes, it's going to make it flush. And then I'm going to do the same process for this one as I did the second layer. And we'll call this the top layer. And then we're just going to hammer that in. Same song, same second verse, same as the first. And then I'm going to stick a little bit more of that glue at the bottom like I did on the second layer. And I'm going to take some sandpaper. I'm just going to sand down that little piece of wood that was sticking out, and you can't even tell. Now I'm going to darken up this summer crush a little bit with some weathered wood, because I want to give this little pumpkin a little bit of dimension. And I got too much weathered wood, so I just added a little more summer crush. And I'm going to kind of dry brush a little, not quite dry brush, but not super wet either. Just in the crevices and kind of where the pumpkin would have those creases. And then I took some just a little bit of weathered wood and did it right around the edges. I did that. This was more of a dry brush. I just did it kind of around the edges a little bit. I love this weathered wood. I think it's a beautiful color. It's kind of a grayish brown, more of a gray tone, but it's just beautiful. So I'm drying it up with the heat gun so that we can speed this process up. I'm going to take that little, it's either 60 or 80 grit. I can't really remember. It came with my orbital sanding pads, and so I just use them by hand. But I'm just going to give this a little bit of distressing in a few areas, and then I'm going to seal it with Big Top by DIY. I really have grown to love this sealer. We're going to seal our DIY paint because it is water soluble, and if we don't seal it, when it gets wet or moisture hits it, it's going to reactivate it, and it could be a huge mess. And so we work too hard on our projects not to take care of them properly. So we're going to seal this up, front, back, sides, the whole 9 yards. And it also helps that paint to dry a richer color than if you wax it. Now, this is part of a spindle off of a chair, and yeah, I just drilled a hole in the bottom just like I did on the other pieces. Now this was the handle of one of these sponge paint brushes, and I always save them, and I used my miter shears to cut it the length I wanted. I'm showing you how easy it is. That just pops off because that wood is so soft. And so I'm going to use that to attach that to the top of our pumpkin piece. Hammer that down in there good, like a peg, and then I'm going to put a hole right there and then stick that down in there. There's my hole. Now, this was a process. I was going to stick this in there and glue it down. Then I decided I needed to do something to it first. See, I start with the Titebond Quick and Thick, and I decide I'm going to squirt some down in there, and I'm trying to put that stem in there, and then I decide, wait, I need to do something to this stem, which I should have just left it alone, but I do love how it turns out in the end. So I decided I was going to wrap this burlap ribbon, this really wide burlap ribbon around here. And then I decided I didn't really like that. So I was going to wrap some twine around it. Well, then I started wrapping a bunch of twine around it. I mean, a lot of twine. And then I get to the end, and it is just looking like a hot mess. I don't even know what this looked like. I don't know. It looked like something, well, the birds make nicer nests than this. Anyway, so I just ripped it all off, ripped every bit of that off, sanded it down, all that hot glue off there, and I think it looks great. I should have just done that in the first place. So now back to the glue, because the glue's already dried at this point. So I put some of that wood glue in there. I put some wood glue on the stem. I think I did. Oh, I put it on the pumpkin. I'm going to put the hot glue on the stem on the opposite side where the wood glue is going to be, just for a quick hold while the wood glue or the tight bond until it sets up. Okay, now I have some raffia, I have some twine, and I have this lace crocheted ribbon from Dollar Tree. If you've been here very long, you know that I love that ribbon. Every time I find it, I grab some up. And this was kind of a new one to me, so I really liked it. So I'm going to wrap this raffia and this ribbon around the base of this stem. I think I've been calling it a stump. Okay, it's a stem. It's our makeshift stem. And then I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue at the base so that our raffia and our ribbon don't slide off. So I'm going to put a little bit in the back there, and then I'll put a little bit in the front right behind our knot, just so it'll stay where we want it to. Then I'm just going to make a knot. I feel like I'm trying to braid curly hair here, trying to keep all of these pieces all together where they're supposed to be. Okay, and then I'm going to, just with the crochet ribbon, I'm going to tie a bow. Oh, I didn't show that part. And then I'm going to do this technique that I absolutely love to do. I'm going to wrap that raffia around a dowel rod. This is a large dowel rod I have in my stash I use for things like this. I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to dry that up instead of putting it in the oven like we used to back in the day. You know, back in the 80s and 90s. Just going to use the little heat gun and dry that. Now I just spritzed it with my little mister just to get it damp, and then look how cute that is. It looks like little tendrils. I do cut those off a little bit shorter when I trim it all up at the end. But I'm going to do the same thing on this side, just in fast motion. It would be nice if we could really work that fast. Anyway, I think this really turns out great. I love it. You let me know what you think about it. Do you have any scrap wood laying around that you could do this with? I think this is about 10 inches tall. The wood pieces are 10 inches tall. So it's a nice sturdy piece, and we used very little glue. Let me know if you would use this technique to put your projects together. Now my next project was inspired by a piece that I saw at Hobby Lobby. So I have all those spindles. In case you don't know, you can go look at those videos. And so these are the long pieces on the end of those banister spindles. And so I just cut them the length that I wanted and cut those ends down. Now I'm going to take my DIY paints, and I'm going to use aviary to do a couple of them. I'm not going to do all the insides because I want the glue to adhere really well, and sometimes paint doesn't adhere to it very good, so I'm just going to leave a little bit of the raw wood, and it's not necessary to waste our paint on that anyway. You are not even going to see it. I'm going to use beadboard on this one. There's the website where I get my DIY paints. I get them from Sammy Veltri at www.unicorndustdesigns.com. And she has DIY paints and recycled decoupage papers and all kinds of thrifted items and just lots of goodies. Just go over there and check it out. I'm going to use cake batter on a couple of them, and on these last two, I'm going to use faded burlap. These are just the colors that I chose that I thought would look good together. They're closer to neutral. The green is not really what I would call neutral, but it is kind of a neutral because it's not a bam in your face kind of green. Now when they're dry, I'm going to sand them down just a little bit, and that didn't really give me the look that I was really going for. So I decided to take a little bit of clear wax and I waxed them. And then I took a little bit of dark wax on a chippy brush. So you're going to see that. But I didn't want the dark wax to really make the paint darker, because sometimes the dark wax will make the paint darker. And I really liked the way that the colors looked. So I'm using the DIY dark wax, and I'm just going to kind of go around the edges a little bit and then wipe it down. And you know, the clear wax is going to keep it from getting so dark. And if you get a little bit too much, you can always take the clear wax and wipe over it, and it'll erase it a little bit. Now I had this little block in my stash already stained. I had cut it off the end of a piece of wood, already stained. So I just put some dark wax on it and using it. We're just using up stuff out of our stash on this one. So I'm using my Titebond Quick and Thick again because it's an amazing glue. We're just going to glue these together. You see I'm gluing where I didn't paint. I'm going to line them all up across the bottom. I'm going to use this handy dandy clamp that I got off Amazon. I'll make sure they're all lined up, then clamp it down nice and tight. And it dried really fast, and then I'm seeing that looks really cute up there. I did attempt to glue it. Put a little Titebond, put a little hot glue, and then I remembered once I stuck it down there, forgot to put the burlap around there. So I had to take it off before the wood glue got dry and wipe that down. So now I'm going to get my burlap out, and I've measured, and you know, you can just kind of run that pencil down that little ridge. And then I got my scissors in the ridge and just cut a strip long enough to go all the way around our pumpkin. And so I'm going to use a combination of hot glue and the Titebond. The hot glue really worked good, but I'm just always afraid it's not going to hold up in the long run. So I ended up taking the clamp off and going ahead and going down the side with the hot glue, and it held up really good. It was fine. This was already getting dry enough to stand up on its own stay together on its own without the clamp on there. So I just did the hot glue there, and you can see that I'm able to kind of manipulate that around without them falling apart. So the Quick and Thick dries really fast. So I'm going to go ahead and put this all the way around. And then I can add the peduncle up on top. It's kind of a fake peduncle, but that's what we're calling it anyway. And now I'm going to get out the messy Spanish moss. I get this at Dollar Tree, and I really like the look of it, especially during Christmas and fall. And spring for our bird nests. Now I'm going to clean up with my little desktop vacuum cleaner. I have that linked in my description box below if you're interested in getting one. I love it. It helps clean up really nice and quick. And so I'm just going to wrap this around, lay it across the top. I'm going to put some hot glue to keep it in place when I get it where I like it and how I like it. Just like that. Just like so. My grandpa used to say that. And Favy over at Arrow's DIY, she says that a lot, and it just makes me think of my grandpa. It makes me smile every time she says it. Well, we're going to do it like so. And we're going to glue those little pine cones in like so. I just love Favy. If you don't watch her, I say Favi. I think she says her name Favi. Favi. If you don't watch her, go and check out Arrow's DIY. She is really amazing. Now I'm going to choose this burlap flower over the other one because I felt like it matched the cake batter paint a little bit better. I got those other burlap flowers at Dollar Tree. I hope that they have some more when I go back. And these little pine cone looking things came on a stem, and I believe I got those at Hobby Lobby. Let me know how you like this two-sided tabletop decor piece. My next project was also inspired by something I saw at Hobby Lobby. Mine looks totally different, but inspired by that piece. These are 4 little pieces of chair legs that came from some of those chairs when I was collecting spindles. So I cut them all the same length, and I just sanded them a little bit just to kind of clean them up. Now this is that paint that I mixed with Summer Crush and cake batter. This is also by DIY Paint. And I'm just going to give it a messy coat, a thin messy coat. I'm not even looking for some full coverage. And I'm going to do a little bit on the tops and the bottoms. And then I am going to, I painted that little piece of a spindle off of a chair with Monet's Garden, and I'm going to take some dark wax and put on there and wipe it off. And I really thought that's what I was going for, but once I placed it in the middle of my little pumpkin, it wasn't what I was looking for. So while I had the dark wax out, I went ahead and put a little dark wax on the ends and the top of this and just a little bit in the middle. I just really didn't want to change the color of the paint too much, but I did want a little bit of dimension. So the tops and the bottoms really got a little bit more. Then I took a little bit of white wax and did it mostly in the middle, just to give it some dimension. And now I'm going to glue them together. I'm going to use a little bit of the Type Bond and a little bit of hot glue to hold these all together. This is such an easy DIY. And of course, now I'm going to wrap some twine around this little spindle. And I just love that it is a different shape. And you can still see the shape of that spindle, even though I did the twine. And I didn't do like full coverage with the twine. I still wanted you to be able to see that green through there a little bit. Then I put a massive amount of hot glue on the bottom of that. And now I'm going to take some more of that brown raffia that comes in a 3-pack with 3 different colors from Hobby Lobby. Tie it around there. I'm going to do my little spiral curl trick where you wet your raffia, wrap it around a dowel, and then use some kind of heat source to dry it, blow dryer, heat gun, and it makes you some little spirals. And then these little picks that I had, little just pieces I had in my stash, have a little box full of little bits and bobbles of things like this. And this is how it turned out. Okay, I promised you scrap wood DIY, and here's our scrap wood. This is just a piece of random scrap wood. I don't even know where it came from. And these are the handles from those foam paintbrushes. Yep, so we use these a lot in Sunday school with my class, and I have them to take the handles off, and we save them. And so I measured them out. I cut them all the same length with my little tiny mini miter saw. I didn't show you that this time. I've shown you that in previous videos. And then I'm going to glue 2 together, and then I'm going to glue 1 on top. I'll show you that when I get the pairs glued together, and then we're going to glue the 3rd one on top, and we're going to make some tiny little legs. Just like that. It's just going to be 3 little pieces of wood glued together to make some little legs. And then we are going to take vintage linen and paint this entire block of wood, front, back, sides, the whole thing. And then when it's completely dry, I'm going to take layered chocolate and barely dry brush a little bit over, just bringing it in from the sides, using the side of my brush to do the edges, kind of like I'm outlining it, just to give the edges some definition. Because we are going to stamp on this thing with the is it called wood planks? What's it called? What is that? I'm doing the same thing on the legs, the same painting technique on the legs. But what is that stamp called? Wood planks, barnwood planks. I think I'm going to show you. Barn planks stamp. We're going to use that with stone gray ink, and we're just going to ink it up. There's several different stamps with this set. I absolutely love it. I get all my IOD products, my DIY products, my Saltwash products from Sammy at unicorndustdesigns.com. Her website is always linked in my description box. You should go over there and check out her website. She's got a lot of thrifted items and upcycled items to buy, so please go check her out. She also has a Whatnot, what do we call that? Whatnot store, Whatnot show, and that's a lot of fun too if you're not familiar with Whatnot. There's also a guy over there, I think his channel is called Just Trying. His name is Leon. His show is a lot of fun, and he has a lot of really cool vintage things as well. Okay. So now we got the barn planks on, and now we're going to glue the legs. I did the bottom, and I can't decide how to use those stamps. So if any of you have used those stamps with the barnwood planks, let me know how you used them and send me pics. Let me know, because I couldn't figure out how to use those and make them look right. So I'm just going to glue these little legs. I do go back. I had to sand some of them because they wouldn't sit. They wouldn't sit straight. I didn't glue them on straight or something. So I had to go back and sand them, and then I went back and touched up that white paint on the bottom. But I just glued the legs on like that. And this little DIY is done, and such a cute little riser for our pumpkins. We are going to start with this old piece of wood that came out of my cousin's house when she did a remodel. I've done some DIYs with it before, so it may look familiar. I'm just going to give it a quick little sand to knock off the dust, and then I'm going to use a little bit of cleaner on a rag to wipe it down. Now I'm going to take some burlap that I had in my stash, and I'm going to cut some little 4-inch squares. And we're going to use the letters FALL and make this little sign into a cute little porch leaner, or you could put a string on it and hang it if you wanted to. So I'm just going to use my little tape measure real quick, use my pencil, whatever I have to do to make these 4-inch squares. Now, I know some people just tear these and rip them, and I've never had much luck doing that because mine are never really straight to begin with, and I've just never gotten the hang of that. So this is how I do it. Everybody does it the way that they do it. I use my little iron press to smooth out the wrinkles. Now, I made some stencils on my Cricut. I might have made them a little bit big for my 4-inch squares, but I make it work. So there, see, it was not right. So I take it off, and then I end up flipping my stencil over and laying my burlap on the back so I can see where I'm putting it. Genius idea, right? Should have thought of that first. Then I'm just going to press it down good on my burlap and then gently remove my transfer tape from the burlap. And it takes a little bit because it doesn't really want to stick to the burlap very good. I get this transfer tape on Amazon. It's really good. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's linked in the description box below. I will double check and make sure of that for you. It's not super sticky, so it works really good. I'm going to take Weathered Wood by DIY. It's a kind of a gray brown. I absolutely love this color. I'm going to use a sponge pouncer, and I'm just going to pounce, 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 pounce my little friend's hands. Did you see my friend's hands over there helping me? My friend is in the craft cottage with me today, and we are crafting together. You're going to see her hands a couple times in this video. And I'm just going to fill in all of these little pieces of burlap with the stencils on to spell out the word fall. I'm going to peel it off, and you can see it made it really nice and crisp. I'm so excited. So here are all of the letters done on the burlap, but I really think that they blended in too well. There wasn't enough contrast between the burlap and the wood there. So I had some fabric in my stash. If you've seen any of my fall DIYs before, you've probably seen this fabric. So I cut the squares just a tiny bit bigger than the burlap squares. I just laid the burlap on there and cut around them. And now we're going to glue those burlap letters onto the fabric. I'm going to use a little quick Tap Bond, quick and thick, and I'm going to put it mostly on the paint on the back, so it'll have something really good to adhere to. I'm also going to use a little bit of hot glue. This is my new pen hot glue by Xyron. My had two Surebonders that just quit on me at the same time, so I had to get new hot glue guns, and you're going to see them in this video. I'm going to press that down into the fabric, and then I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the corners where the burlap doesn't stick to it, where it doesn't make connection. Now I took some of that fabric and I ripped strips. I had these left over from a project, so I'm just going to use them, but I'm showing you that you just snip the end and you just rip it. And I cut this little piece of burlap, and I'm just going to make a messy bow. I'm going to do this really quickly in fast time, but it's super easy. You just layer those strips however you want to, bunch it up, pinch it up in the middle, and tie it with whatever you want to. You can tie it with a ribbon, you can tie it with a piece of twine, you could do it with a zip tie. I mean, the possibilities are endless. I'm just going to wrap it around a couple times, tie it again on the back, make a nice little knot, and then I'm going to put it on the top of that sign. And I'm going to fluff it a little bit first. And then I had purchased last week some of these little burlap flowers at Dollar Tree, and I thought they would be cute little embellishments. And so look how cute they are. And so I decided on these, and they have stickers, but I'm going to trust the stickers. So I'm hot glue it to the middle. Okay, this is my other new hot glue gun, and it has a backup, so it has storage. So when you use one glue stick, the other one drops down in there, so you can have backup in there. So we're going to glue that bow to the top. Then we're just going to glue these little fall block letters with some Tite Bond and some hot glue to our wood. And I'm hoping that this holds up in the Texas heat in the fall. And if it doesn't, I'll just add some more hot glue to it, or some more whatever kind of glue I need to put on there. That's the good thing about making your DIYs. If it doesn't hold up, then you just redo it. But if I were selling this, I probably would use something a little more permanent that would stand up to the elements. I glued all 4 of those down, and then I decided I love this little look where you add the twine to the top or the bottom, and I just tied a knot, and I'm just going to twist it around a few times, tie it on the back, and this DIY is done. This was so easy and so simple, but it's so cute. You could do it in any different colors that you wanted. You could use any kind of different fabric, any kind of different wood. You could paint the wood first. The possibilities are endless.
That's it for today, friends. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up. Leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know that you were here. But most of all, I want you to remember, to be still and know that He is God.